All right. Welcome back to Midlife Mayhem, the podcast all about midlife and the beautiful chaos that it creates. I am here with Bridget Caletka.
Hi.
Bridget and I actually just met a week and a half ago.
About 10 days ago, yeah.
Yeah. And talk about like divine meetings and encounters. I truly believe that you meet the people that you need to meet at the right time. And I'm so grateful that we're connected.
I am too.
So I was talking with Bridget about the podcast I did last week, and I had that as a plan. So I was letting her know because she shared with me that she was a grief and childhood trauma counselor. So what a perfect
Fit.
timing and combination. But tell us about yourself and what you specialize in and what you do.
So I'm a counselor. I'm a licensed counselor in Texas, an LPC, and a licensed mental health counselor in New York State. And this is a second career for me. After raising my kids, I went back to school in 2008 and got a master's degree in counseling. And then I did a postmaster's in clinical mental health counseling so that I could have my own practice. And I've worked in a bunch of different settings. I'm actually not seeing clients right now. I've sort of moved into that next phase of my career where I'm supervising other counselors, and I'm on the board of Mosaics, which is a mental health nonprofit based in Montgomery County, Texas.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome. We'll put the link for that nonprofit in the notes too.
Please.
Yeah. So we are, just to preface this conversation, we're on the porch of the Seven Keys Lodge, owned by two of my favorite people. And Abby was so sweet that owns Outlaws and Legends Steakhouse, which is here. Abby let us come up this morning before brunch starts.
Yes.
And you're coming for brunch.
I'm going to brunch with my family.
Yeah. So we are up here on the porch. It's a little chilly this morning, but you can see the aspen behind us. They're this beautiful gold right now, which matches Bridget's shirt, which she's
beautiful.
You want to tell us about why you're wearing yellow?
Yeah. So yellow is my mom's favorite color. And whenever I talk about grief, I like to wear yellow just to honor her.
That's so awesome. So this time of year is perfect for your mom in Estes Park with all the gold. And
it is. I love it here this time of year.
See, I should have brought the box of tissues. We're both going to do this.
Already.
Yeah. So if you heard the podcast last week and then Tim Resch, his interview, we've kind of just focused on my childhood trauma with losing my mom and Tim's trauma with losing his family and how it, I feel like it's definitely shaped who we are. It's always part of us. It's not something you can just move on from. And the response that I've had from the listeners when we were talking and you asked me my mom's name. See here, I'm going to go. I'm not doing it yet. It almost like me typing my mom's name. There was something so like surreal about that.
Yeah.
And it just made it like bring her more, I don't know, it was focused more on the person than it was like what happened, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
And then you sharing your mom's name with me, Alice and Susan.
And Susan, yeah. And we need to say their names because one thing that grievers will talk about is how people don't want to speak their deceased loved ones' names. They're afraid to say it because they know it elicits this reaction in us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're afraid of our pain and they're afraid of not knowing what to say and do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really always asking people to say the name because I think it's important that we do that.
Yeah, and it is. It's making me tear up just think about it. But I don't remember the last time I heard my mom's name. So, not doing this today. Sorry. Maybe we are. Who knows?
I think we probably are doing this.
Oh my goodness! But the response that that I've received on social media, especially and YouTube, people commented and had lots of questions, which I love. I love that people were curious about how things happened and. But what I realized is that everybody has some type of pain, right? Everybody has some type of pain that if you're not going through a painful situation right now, you've had it and it is part of who you are. But losing a parent in adulthood, losing, specifically talking about parents, but like people that are in this like sandwich generation when they have young kids and then they're caring for their aging parents, which Stephen and I went through for 4 years when we lost 3 parents in a row.
Did you? Okay.
But there's so many people out there suffering. And I don't know if they're talking about it to other people, but they shared with me and I was just in tears. It's
so powerful to have people share their personal stories. Like we feel, I would say as counselors, and I know I personally feel so honored when people share their various pains. And I see grief everywhere in life, and it's losing people, but it's also losing other things,
Yeah.
losing our children's youth as we
Mm-hmm.
watch them grow. It's moving. It's, all of these big life changes bring with them grief. And certainly by this phase of life, by the time we get to this
Mm-hmm.
middle age phase, we've experienced a lot of grief, whether we acknowledge it or not.
Yep. And I love that you say that just about it doesn't have to be like a person, like that you've lost a person. But I remember specifically because of midlife topics, I remember when I hit 40 and Stephen and I had a miscarriage and that was our last shot at having another baby. I love babies. I could have
Mm.
babies like once a year. I think I could have a baby. I
Well,
love
I'm one of
babies.
8 children. My
Yeah, oh
husband's
my
one of
gosh.
7. So our
Wow.
families love
Yeah.
babies too.
But I remember that transition when it was like, okay, past 40, and we decided not to have more kids at that point.
Right.
It was like, what now? And there was a period of grieving. And that's
Of
when
course.
I know I went through, I was the heaviest I'd ever been and just kind of just didn't care. I was like, okay,
Went through all
I don't
those
know what to do.
changes.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. So that's such a
And,
great point.
and like I think our society is really bad at grief. Really bad. We talked about like grief avoidant.
That's what I couldn't think of the words that you used the other day. I was telling a
Mm-hmm.
friend about it. That grief avoidance is,
Mm-hmm.
or grief avoidant society. And it's not that
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to talk about those things, but maybe sometimes it's even they just don't know how, or they don't know how to
Right.
engage with somebody.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
start the conversation, or
Mm-hmm.
they're afraid of what's going to come up, and you could argue that our society was much better at this in Victorian times when there was, an official mourning clothes that people
Mm,
wore, official mourning period. There were societal rules about what you could and couldn't do when you were in mourning. And now I think we're just flailing out there, trying to figure out, we're supposed to
mhm.
get back to work the next week and, pretend like we're okay.
Yeah. And there's definitely something to that, like feeling the need to pretend to be okay.
Right.
And with my kids, and I don't know if it's because of what I went through with my mom, but I try so hard, like if they see something that's different, or they see a person that's different, or they see somebody that they know that they've been through something,
Right.
and it's okay to talk about. And if they're uncomfortable talking about it, it's okay for them to say to you, I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
But it's always better to ask and let them know that you're there and you'll hold
Right.
space for them.
I love that.
So
It's
I
so
don't know,
true.
and it's not easy. It's not easy for me sometimes, but
No.
I feel like I have been, not the hard one, but I ask the hard questions. Like I like
Yeah,
to
I
dive
can
deep
tell
with
that.
people.
Right.
And so I think
You'd be
that's,
a great
oh
counselor.
my gosh, I love it.
Because we kind of always go in for that. We know that the stuff we're not talking about is probably exactly the stuff we need to talk about.
Yep.
So I'm really comfortable going to those places. And
Hmm.
sometimes someone's not ready, they don't want to talk about it. That's totally okay, like you said.
Hmm.
But I'm always willing to kind of go in for it and ask,
Hmm.
how are you really doing? I see the smile, I see the hair and makeup, but what's underneath that? How are you really doing inside? Or noticing cues that someone's not really quite okay, and being able to sit with them and
Hmm.
maybe give them space to talk about it or process. But I would say like your average person, doesn't, and it's not that they can't do it or they're not skilled in doing it. I think there's a lot of fear about not wanting to offend people. We live in the age of not wanting to offend people,
Right.
right? Or not wanting to bring up sad feelings for them.
Hmm.
But really, that's what heals us, is sitting with our feelings.
Hmm. Yeah. And I know I'm this way, and I've talked to several friends who are this way, where it's like if you stay busy
Right.
and you don't have to sit in the quiet, but that is why, like
That's the avoidance.
when I go to the Rocky Mountain National Park and
I
I'm
love
walking by
it.
myself and Steven runs off, which he left me in the middle of the road in the park. I had to walk like a mile, which was great, but I just took off because there was an elk. So anyway, but when I get by myself and that quiet
Yes.
is when he's out of town and I'm by myself and the kids aren't home or something, it's like I have to keep myself busy or I have to sit and deal with it.
Right.
And
But doing that in nature, so we know nature is so healing. I mean, this is scientific. Like we have evidence,
mhm,
that nature is so healing for us with in our emotional
mhm.
world.
Will you tell us about that certification that you have? Because I'm
Yes,
thrilled to
I
know
would
about
love to.
this.
So, um, I guess 2 years ago, I did a certification to become a certified nature-informed therapist. And it was a long weekend in the beautiful outdoors hills of Maryland. And the whole idea, and that is an evidence-based treatment so that we can, and I've always taken my clients out to do walk and talk therapies before that was really
That's
popular,
awesome.
and now it is popular. And I know how I feel in nature. I feel like I'm more what you're talking about, connected to my emotional state, my physical. We know physical well-being and emotional well-being, right, are interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
We can't separate them. So the whole idea behind nature-informed therapy is viewing nature as a mirror, a mentor, and as medicine, which I love. And so a mirror of it's reflecting what's happening in us. We can see aspects of what's happening in us out in the natural world as mentor. So it's teaching us something. I feel like we always have something to learn
Yeah.
from nature. And as medicine, meaning that it's healing. And it sounds like you feel also that it's
Absolutely.
healing.
Absolutely. And there's a reason, because we live between North Carolina and here, like you live between here and Texas.
Right.
And when I go home, there's this like weird adjustment. Here we're up at like
Yes.
4:30 in the morning. We go to the park every morning to watch sunrise, and right now the elk rut.
Yes.
And it's amazing. And then when we go back to North Carolina, it's like, what now? Like living in
Right.
suburban
Right.
North Carolina. Because I miss this. And so I have to
Yeah.
find other outlets for that. We've got like the White Water Center and things like that.
To go
but
do, yeah.
it's so different for me
Well,
here.
think about it. Our ancestors lived outdoors. And so we have these artificial dwellings now, which are great. I'm very grateful to have four walls,
Yeah.
especially when I saw a mountain lion 30 feet from my back door the other day.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
So I mean, I'm not knocking it. It's good that we have, structure and buildings and all of that, but we have become disconnected from nature.
Yeah.
And that probably has done something to our souls in some ways.
Yeah.
And how you're saying we feel different when we are on a walk, on a hike, in, near a river.
Oh yeah.
And it's doing something to our visual field that is very healing. And we know the eyes now, like with EMDR and brain spotting, are very connected to our mental health and the potential for healing through our vision. So I love being out here too.
Yeah. And even,
So great.
Even on this porch, and I'll show you at the end of the video for those of you who are watching on YouTube, but it's this beautiful view of Estes Park and the trees. It's just magic. It is magic. And
it's a gorgeous spot here.
It definitely just like calms my nervous system. Like I can just feel everything slowing down.
Right.
My brain slows down, but I immediately, as soon as I slow, I immediately think of my parents.
Oh.
And
how could you not, though?
I know.
How could you not?
I know. It's just amazing. But so will you tell me a little more about your mom?
Yeah, I would love to. She was a nurse like your mom. I feel like we have so much in common. She was a nurse for like 50 years. She worked on pretty much every floor, med-surg, maternity, but she ended her career as a hospice nurse.
Oh.
And so she's definitely the reason I'm a counselor, because she did a lot of, we think we're not great at grieving in 2025. We were really not great at it in 1985 when she started in hospice. And so she did a lot of public education, and she had her little flip chart, with her. And she would talk about, back then we thought about grief as stages, right? Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And her model has sort of been thrown out the window, like, oh, we know grief doesn't happen in these neat little stages. But actually the stages do happen. They just don't maybe always happen, or they don't happen in a certain order. So I still find a lot of value as a clinician in her stage model. It's not the primary model that I use. It's not like my primary way of working with clients. However, my mom, that was very much the model back then. So she would go around town and talk about death and grieving and, the process of dying and what happens to families. And I was like a little kid, and I would go with her, and help her
amazing.
do that. And it's interesting. I never set out to become a grief counselor. I thought I wanted to be a school counselor because I do love kids and teens. But then I have a couple of good friends who say grief always finds me, and it's true. This work always finds me. And the more sometimes I've tried to retreat from it, and it always keeps creeping
Mm,
up. And so I know it's what I'm meant to do.
yeah.
And I really have specialized in traumatic grief, which is a smaller subspecialty. It's where trauma intersects with grief. So when people lose a loved one under tragic circumstances, that could be, car accidents, um, very brief illnesses that haven't
Mhm.
given them enough time to process, um, disfiguring deaths. Loss of a child is always considered traumatic grief,
Wow.
always. And that goes, from neonatal deaths, miscarriages. And I suffered from recurrent miscarriages also
Mm,
before I had my children. So there's definitely grief, as you know,
yeah.
associated with that. So this traumatic grief, which we don't have a lot of counselors who are trained to do that work specifically,
Mhm.
deaths by suicide, et cetera.
Mm,
Um, just it's really hard work, and it's hard for the people who are going through it.
yeah. Well, and so I guess that brings up the point that if people are grieving, if people are suffering, counseling is amazing, but it
Yes,
really is important to find somebody that's specialized, especially with traumatic
yes. and
loss.
and what I found, it's going to be maybe a little controversial for me to say this, but we have a lot of well-intentioned counselors doing grief work that actually don't have any specific training in doing it. But, and they probably are doing really good work, a lot of
Mhm.
them, but there's a great potential for harm. And a lot of our counseling degree programs don't have courses specifically in grief,
Mm,
sometimes not even specifically in trauma, which is shocking.
yeah.
And then you'll find a lot of counselors, like if you look on Psychology Today or whatever, almost everyone says that they do grief work. But I would encourage people to really ask some questions about what kind of grief work
Mhm.
um, any particular licensed person has experience in,
Mhm.
and also find out if they have any advanced training in that too, because I've heard some shocking stories
Oh my
about people
gosh.
in counseling. And I don't think the counselors are trying to do anything bad or harmful, obviously,
Yep.
but they just listening is not enough. We need
Mhm.
to have more tools to truly help people, especially with some of these very difficult grief circumstances,
Yeah.
to help them really figure out how to be with their grief and to move through that at a pace that feels right for them,
Mhm.
and using specific techniques and interventions uh, to facilitate that,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It does, totally, and I think too that I've heard people say before that they'll never go to counseling again because they had a bad experience,
Yeah.
and so it's like
And that like hurts my, sorry,
yeah,
my mic. It hurts my heart to hear that
yeah.
but it's true. I have a colleague that lost a child. And so she's a counselor, and she went to a counselor outside of our area to get some help. And some of the things the counselor said to her were pretty shocking, such as, you should be grateful because you have 3 other healthy children. I mean,
Oh,
this is not okay. And
wow.
I think in the moment she thought she was saying something helpful or giving her a perspective.
But it
But
feels like shame, like, for feeling oh my goodness, yeah.
right,
Wow.
yeah. So,
Oh,
and they were proud, and there was other things too. I don't want to
yeah.
speak for her, but I hear these stories. I do think there's a great potential for harm.
Mm,
Um, and what's so hard is like what you said, when someone has a bad experience with a therapist, that could turn them off from getting help the rest of their lives.
yep.
And so I always encourage people, you may have to go through a couple of therapists to
Mhm,
find that right fit, to feel that connection,
mhm,
or to find someone who really specializes in what you need, whether it's
mhm.
grief or something else.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so important.
And what would you suggest? You mentioned a website, like, is what's a good place for people to go and find resources for?
Okay,
reputable
so
counselors?
I mentioned Psychology Today, and that's sort of, we all pretty much, all of us will have a listing on Psychology Today,
Mm-hmm.
just so that people can find you. It's easy. The problem sometimes with that is it can be hard to, you're looking, let's say you need OCD treatment,
Mm-hmm.
and you just see 20 or 30 random names, and you start calling. And, people either don't answer the phone because they're busy, or they're like me, they're not accepting new clients at this
Mm-hmm.
time, or they don't accept your insurance. The process of finding help can be so daunting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I joined the board of Mosaics, which is this
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit, which is unique in Texas, and we think it might be unique in the country. When you call Mosaics, you just have to make one phone call.
Oh,
You
wow.
call in and you talk to a licensed person like me, and you tell your story that one time, what you need, what your insurance is, or how much you can afford to pay. And that, we call them navigators, but they're licensed counselors.
Mm-hmm.
Our Mosaics navigator makes all of the phone calls for you
Oh my gosh.
to connect you with. It's a really, it's almost like a concierge kind of
Yeah.
service, but we
Yeah.
do it for free for
That's
people. So there's no
amazing.
charge, and they come back to you with it's not just random names on a list. They have verified that those, usually we try to get back to people with 3 names
Mm-hmm.
of people who can take them quite quickly. And those 3 people are waiting for that phone call, and they've guaranteed you've got a spot if you want to go see them.
Wow. What an
Nobody's doing
amazing
this.
program.
Oh, it's every community in America needs a Mosaics. And right
Yeah.
now we're in the greater Houston. We're in like 7 counties in greater
Yep.
Houston. But if we had more money, if we, if somebody who is passionate about mental health
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, give money towards this, we could be putting a Mosaics in every community, because it is too hard to find the help.
Yep.
And people get frustrated and they give up. And
Yeah,
I
I
know
get
that,
that. It's overwhelming to think about like
yeah,
finding, especially somebody that you want to trust and be that vulnerable
right.
with.
I know. And if
Wow.
you've ever looked for, or if anybody, any of your listeners have ever looked for mental health help for yourself or your loved ones, this will not be an unfamiliar story to you about how hard it is
Mm-hmm.
to access. And the help is out there, but how do we get people connected
Yeah.
to the right help?
Mm-hmm. And are there any virtual services that are offered through that? Like that when you find the 3 people, or do they ever offer virtual, or is it
Well,
just that?
so we are in those 7 counties in Texas, but I will tell you, not that long ago, we had a call from Florida. We had another call from, I think, Louisiana or Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
and our navigators did help them. I mean, they will
Yeah.
help whoever calls in, but we just don't have, we're a small nonprofit. We just don't have, the resources to be a nationwide, service for
Yeah.
connecting people. But they won't turn anyone away.
Yeah. Well, anyone listening, if you have any interest in being part of this or have ideas on how to expand that, I mean, I'm just sitting
We
here,
would,
my brain's
we would,
spinning about
yeah,
Estes Park in North Carolina. I'm like,
no,
wow.
we would love. It's really special. I'm really,
Yeah.
as you can tell, really
Yeah.
passionate about it. But
I
our
love it.
website is www.mosaicstx.org.
Okay. Perfect.
And if you look that up, you'll find our number, and we're always happy to help whoever we possibly can.
Yeah. Gosh, that's what a
But we have a
wonderful.
limited service area officially because, we just,
Yeah.
we have a small staff, I mean, they're outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, I mean, so we were thinking about grief, and traumatic grief, which, grief counseling is, a sub, area of
Mm-hmm.
counseling. And then traumatic grief is even a smaller subspecialty. Sometimes by the time someone would find me, maybe they lost their teenager by suicide, and they call and tell me that I'm their 12th phone call.
Mm.
I mean, it's just like it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah. Yeah. What an amazing service. So please, please look into that and yeah, reach out if you have any ideas on expansion for other places, because there's so many people that would benefit from that.
The need is great.
Yeah, that is tremendous. Okay, so I have a question for you about trauma.
Okay.
Okay, are there things, this is probably a really loaded question,
Okay, I'm ready.
but are there things that you have seen as like kind of like norms
Mhm.
for people who have experienced childhood trauma? And by childhood
Well,
trauma, let me specify like losing family members.
right, right. And I will clarify, I am not a childhood trauma specialist, but I have treated a lot of,
Yeah.
kids and families for
Yeah.
trauma. So, so you mean like themes, sort
Yeah. Like
of?
things that, because I know that there are times in my life that I've wondered, I'm like, I wonder if other people who have been through things like this, like, is this something like people pleasing?
Right.
And wanting
Absolutely.
to keep everybody
Yes.
happy and
Right.
keeping all my feelings bottled up inside. Like there are trends that I've seen in myself.
Those are really good ones that
Yeah.
you just
Oh,
mentioned.
thanks. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean, because you've lived this. And the thing is, especially like loss of a parent, our parents are our primary attachment figures,
Hmm.
right? So, we can't, like when you say you think about it all the time, and I'm saying to you, how could you not? How could you not? Like your mom,
Hmm.
is, your primary attachment figure in life. And so, do we see people who've had losses like that at a young age go through difficulties in relationships?
Hmm.
Navigating how to, because when you've had an attachment wound, like losing your mom at a young age, sometimes that can lead to difficulties in adult, teen into adult relationships, trying to navigate how do I become close with someone when there's this fear of losing them. I don't know if that resonates with you
Dang,
at
you're
all.
good.
Okay.
That definitely does.
Because we've never
That's
talked about this. We've only
no.
ever talked briefly
Yeah.
once before.
And it's something that I think I attach to people very quickly.
Mhm.
But I feel like I've got major abandonment issues. And I know some of that comes from that. And then some of it comes from, having a stepmom that left my dad.
Mm.
And then,
So another
people,
another
yeah,
loss or abandonment.
I feel like there's been a lot of that. Like my little brother and his wife don't speak to me. Like I've got all these like fractures in my family
Yeah.
and friends that I've become good friends with and like felt like I could trust and kind of put my heart in. And then the friendship goes away and there's no
Right.
reason.
Yeah, trust is a huge,
Yeah, it's just,
huge issue.
but for people to, and I am grateful that I'm older and that I've been able to process through this stuff and had some great counselors along the way.
Right.
Um, to kind of recognize like it doesn't mean I want to change those things about myself. I just can see it, and I have to like remind myself.
And figuring out how to navigate all of that.
Yeah.
Another one that just popped into my mind is, and certainly not everyone goes through this, but I'm thinking about all of the maladaptive, as we counselors would say, so not good, ways of coping with trauma. And we see this with childhood sexual trauma. We see this with, kids who um, have maybe been physically or emotionally abused. But just in general, the traumatic things we go through in life, how do people cope with those? Well, we see a lot of drug and alcohol use.
Hmm.
We see a lot of acting out behaviorally with, teens and young adults.
Hmm.
And, we have a lot of unhealthy ways that, we tend to, a lot of us default to some unhealthy things that could be bad eating habits or whatever, instead of these healthier, what we would call more adaptive
Hmm.
ways.
Yeah.
So that could be a piece for some
Hmm.
people, not everyone,
Hmm.
obviously. Um, and, also thinking about how do we, and personality can have a lot to do with it too, right? We know some people are more resilient or less resilient.
Hmm.
There's entire body of research on resiliency and what
Hmm.
makes us more or less resilient. Some of that could be just our personal nature, like who we are, how we're born. And some of it can be resiliency skills that we can acquire. I would say access to resources, I mean,
Hmm.
some children who might lose a parent their family might have the ability to send them to group therapy or individual therapy.
Hmm.
Um, and we know that there's a real disparity in this country with access to
Right.
mental health resources. So other kids just kind of, they're kind of just expected to go back to school, and we're not really going to, I think you talked about this a little bit, like we're
Hmm.
not going to talk about this too
Hmm.
much. And so do we see fallout with consequences of people that don't have, we know early intervention is the best,
Yeah.
right? So for me, sometimes I see a big difference in how someone's doing in their adult life with what resources they had access to.
Mm-hmm.
Did their family talk about it? You know, there's a lot of, I think, especially in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, a lot of burying of, we're just not going to talk about these things.
Yeah.
I feel like we're a bit better with that now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that we're where we need to be.
Yeah, for sure. And it is so special when you meet someone, again, like I love hearing people's stories and I
Mhm.
love having that space with them. And when they trust me with that information and their feelings
Right.
like that, it's like, wow. But I've met so many women, especially over the past couple of years, I've noticed who we sit down for lunch, like we just met. Hey, let's go grab lunch together and get to know each other.
Right.
And it's just like, this is me. This is, I mean, just the traumatic stories that I've heard from people. And I'm like, thank you. Because then you can feel like, I mean, I just got chills thinking about it, but then
Yeah.
you can really, like, you really know the root of the person. And
That's right.
not that it makes them, not that it shapes completely who they are, but it's a piece of them that never goes away.
Right. And it's that authentic, like that authentic personal communication is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so my theoretical orientation in counseling is existential. And that says that the relationship is everything. So if we don't have a realness between us, then the relationship's not really good,
Yeah.
you know, or maybe not even really real.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is like when you sit down, and obviously you exude that, like you are very much a person that people feel like they can open up to, which is why you'd be a great counselor.
Ah.
But yeah, when people start to share this, and people are eager to talk about it, right? Like to share their stories. That's, I'm guessing, probably why you're doing a podcast, right?
Yeah.
To talk about this personal stuff. Like we have a need to do that. So when you make those connections, that's when, you know, the real relationship begins.
Yeah.
And in counseling, that's when the work begins.
Yeah.
Because if a client doesn't feel like they can be real with me or truthful, and if they don't feel like I'm giving a part of myself truthfully back to them, the treatment plan's not going to go well.
Yeah.
You know?
But I love what you just said about like how if you don't have that deep level of relationship, like is the relationship even real? And
Right.
it's that just hit hard because it's like that's the root of it is it's really hard to have surfacey relationships when you're a deep person.
Yes.
And I'm a very deep person. And I do have
Yeah.
surfacey relationships that I kind of just allow people if they want to talk to me about stuff. Like it takes a while for me to share my story and share pieces of myself.
Right.
With new relationships, but they're relationships that I've let go. It's like weeding the garden when they're just like these surfacey taking your energy and you have other people like
Right.
meeting you. I mean, less than 2 weeks ago, I
know.
told my husband, I was like, I'm just so shocked. Like
Yeah.
it was perfect timing. And those deep, meaningful relationships and our text exchange that one day when you were asked, I was
And you know
just
what?
like,
And I'm going to tell
wow.
you something. I almost didn't send it.
Oh, I'm so
I
glad you
almost
did.
thought, oh, like maybe because I felt like we did have a connection, and then I watched the podcast or listened to it as I was driving down St. Vrain Canyon, and just the canyon was so beautiful, and the sun was glistening on the trees, and I was thinking about our conversation, and I thought, I want to ask her mom's name.
Yep. Well, I'm so glad you did because it did. It just struck something in me. And I feel like with my story, I don't get caught off guard very often by things, but that really just kind of hit in a different way. And then sharing your mom's name, Alice, and when did she pass?
In August of 2014.
Wow.
So yeah, 11 years ago. And she lived a good long life. She was 83 or almost 83,
Aw.
82, but she was healthy and living independently. And so she was, went into the hospital for a day or two with a little bit of pneumonia and a little bit of a heart thing, and then died really. And I didn't get there before she died. But all of my other siblings did. And I talked to her the night before. And yeah, but so still, even being in her 80s, because it happened quickly, felt more traumatizing, I would say, than not that it's ever easy to lose a parent, but
Right.
I think none of the siblings felt ready. Like we didn't have any time to really process that she was going to die.
Wow.
We thought she was going to a rehab for a few weeks and then go home,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah. And whether you're an adult losing a parent or a child, or it's traumatic or it's not, or it's, there is, that's a hole. I mean, that is a hole that definitely I think over time can soften, like losing my dad 4 years ago and he was similar. Seemed fine. And we texted and talked every day. But there was a point where he wasn't feeling well, and it's a long story. I'll tell a different time, but he went in and 2 weeks later passed away.
right. So unexpected.
Yeah. And it's just, I feel like I handled it better than I thought I would. But I also think because I've been an ICU nurse and I kind of saw the progression, like I feel like I knew sooner. And
Right.
I don't know if we've talked about the thin space moments in life. Have we talked about that a
I
little bit?
listened to your podcast talking about that.
So if you haven't seen any other episodes, the thin space is this place where the boundaries between heaven and earth just blur. And that's what Estes Park is to me, and nature up here. It's just like this, it's like heaven. It's like being in heaven, but still being on earth. But there was a moment when my dad was in the hospital. My stepmom was really upset with me because I wouldn't see my little brother, but I was there to see my dad. Long story, but
yeah.
So I went to the cemetery to see my mom, to her grave, and saw my dad's mausoleum site where he was going to be buried.
Right.
And at that point, nobody, I think, knew that he was going to pass away.
Right.
And there was this moment, they've got oak trees. It's in Wilmington, just these beautiful oak trees with the Spanish moss. And I was walking around there just, good morning.
Good morning.
I was walking around there just praying and talking to my mom. And I just had this peace come over me. And I was like, if now is Dad's time, Mom, just welcome him to heaven.
Oh,
and it was it was just one of those moments that just kind of, it just made it okay.
right.
You know, and,
Yeah.
and of course I miss him, but it just felt like peace.
That brought you peace.
And I hope that you guys had that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I did. My conversation with her the night before, even though it was very normal, brought me a lot of peace, you know, because it was just our typical, you know, conversation.
And you didn't know at that point that she was going to pass away?
No, none of us did. You know, we knew that she'd had that she'd had, like, I guess technically a heart attack, but like a mild heart attack. But we didn't know that that was it. That like that day was, you know, the next day was going to be it. But, and I don't know if this will resonate with you or not, but my one brother, when I called and told him, because he had gone home to another state, and I had to call and, you know, tell him that she had died because the rehab facility had called me. And his first words were, "We're orphans now." So losing a second parent, right? Because losing one parent is always extremely hard. But
Get my toilet paper out.
we couldn't find tissues here this morning.
Yes.
So, and the altitude, I'm always, it really hit me, like you said, like it was like a knife in my, but not to blame him for that, but you know, you've lost the one parent, but you still have another parent. So,
sorry for the traffic noise.
The truck to go by. That moment of feeling like I don't have a parent anymore here on this earth is hard, right?
Yep. That is, wow. Yeah.
You know, it just came out of his mouth and it was how he felt, which is totally real. And I felt it deeply in that moment too.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's something I think I mentioned in my podcast last week about just feeling very alone. And I'm not alone. I've got amazing friends and family and connections, and my patients have become members of my family. It's just, you know, we've got wonderful people in our life, but there's something about like the one person who, like for me was my dad. When that person's gone, it's like, what do you do sometimes? And those are, I don't know, those moments don't come very often where I just feel like, who do I go to? But
and those are the hard moments. But then on the opposite end of the spectrum are these peaceful moments, like what you're describing.
Yep.
And which is what you actually asked me about. But I kept having this thought in my mind about him saying that we're orphans. But to me, so a great therapist, a giant in psychotherapy is Irvin Yalom. And my orientation with my clients is very much based on his work. And I got to meet him
Oh,
a
wow.
few years ago before COVID, which was, I got to spend a therapy hour with him, which was amazing.
Wow.
And in Stanford, he's a professor emeritus at Stanford. And he talks about the ripple effect. Like if you throw a pebble into a pond and the ripples. And to me, this is a very comforting thought that when someone dies, their person, their legacy ripples on in us, in our children, in our grandchildren. That and that brings me a lot of comfort. I see aspects of my mom and my dad, who's also, my dad died, predeceased my mom. He died from cancer in 1992. And when I think about parts of me that reflect them, and I see some of them in my children, and hopefully one day grandchildren, that to me is a very peaceful, comforting, thin space sort of moment.
Yeah.
When that happens, I can see a little smirk on my son's face that reminds me of my dad.
Yeah.
And that just brings me back to this really beautiful, special place.
Yeah. I love that description of the pebble and the ripples.
The
and
ripple effect, yeah.
So it really, and I think that's what, there's something like talk about like these divine meetings and divine things happening. Like I know there's a reason that I did the podcast on my mom.
Yeah.
And I can see along the way, like all these, like I'm a member of this group. We meet on Tuesday mornings on Zoom, and the group of women encouraged me to start the podcast. I was like, okay, let's do it. So the next week I had the podcast up and going, and
Yeah.
I
love that.
But it's like, I feel like there have been parts of my life where I've not let my mom's legacy show. And it feels really good, like to become a nurse, to do what I'm doing, to work with patients, and just to be able to feel like I'm allowing, whether it's her or God, whatever it is, come through. It's like,
Right.
let me use my God-given talents to do what I'm meant to do.
And that is her rippling on in your work, and even the effect of the podcast, that it impacted so many people who then felt that they could ask questions or share their stories. Like I see that as ripples.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah. And I hope it continues. So please do continue to reach out. If you have any comments, any thoughts, my email is kim@thinspacewellness.com, like the thin space between heaven and earth. I love hearing from people. I've actually, and we haven't talked about this because we've only known each other less than 2 weeks.
10 days.
But something that's been on my heart for the past couple of years, especially since we moved to Estes Park, I'm so passionate about sharing Estes Park with people.
Oh.
Clearly, you see my post every day on social media.
Yes.
They're like, stop with the elk. But I'm so passionate about how powerful this place is for so many reasons. And I want to start a retreat. So I have the retreat all mapped out. It's 4 days, 3 nights. I've not done one yet, but I want to start
amazing
ASAP. And this morning it actually hit me. I was like, this is the base for the retreats. Like this should be like, whether it's healing from grief, whether it's just needing to get unstuck and to restart, but just to come here and use nature as medicine. And I would love, maybe we can do something together next summer.
We should talk.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
That would be amazing because people need this.
Yeah. And whether it's grief or whatever it is, like this is just, everybody needs some sort of healing, some sort of reset, just a reset for your nervous system. And this is it. So, I'm so glad
there's
that
a
we connected.
lot of research about this also.
Yeah.
This is not just pulling something, out of thin air. It's scientifically based.
Yep.
And people need it.
Yeah. So we will be talking more.
Yes.
And Bridget let me know this morning that she herself is starting a podcast soon. So I will definitely send some updates. If you want to be on our email list, that's probably the best way. Just send me an email, kim@thinspacewellness.com. Or you can go to my website, thinspacewellness.com, and sign up for the newsletter there. But we'll be sending updates, and anytime she has updates about the nonprofit or her own podcast, I'll be posting that. And I really hope that we get to work together
I
with
do
some of these
too.
things.
I
Like,
really do.
even if it's like a retreat, like, and do some
Yeah.
sessions, and
I feel like
it'd be
we can
amazing.
definitely collaborate on
Yeah.
something. I
But
would love to.
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Travel safely tomorrow. She's going back
Thank
to Texas
you. Back to
tomorrow. And thank you to Seven Keys Lodge and to Outlaws and Legends Steakhouse for letting us borrow their porch this morning. It has been just a thin space. It's been amazing and
It
a great
has been
conversation. So thank you.
so lovely.
And I'm going
Thank
to take
you.
1 second to flip the camera around. For those of you watching, if you're listening, you can hang up now. But this is, oh, I can flip the camera right here. This is our view. There's Estes Park right down there, and all the beautiful aspen and the beautiful porch. Okay, so you guys take care and have, let me see if I can get that camera right. Have a great week. So next week, the podcast, I don't know what the podcast will be next week. It's been kind of fun to just see how things progress and how it goes. So I'll keep you posted, but please come back and join us next week. And I promise it'll be something.
It'll be great.
It'll be something.
It'll be great.
Yeah, you guys take care and have a great day.
Bye.